July 19, 2023. Durango Dank here. When you look at this handle and this woman, her wedding, when you Google her name and when you understand her wedding, you'll get a good idea of what that whole nucleus is all about. And to me, it's all about love. It's all about sharing stories. And it was when you search her name, and I don't want to say her name yet because I want to be able to pronounce it exactly. And I have a hard time pronouncing names that because of my learning disabilities, which is I am chronic ADHD on steroids, along with being dyslexic. I even talk backwards. I remember I'd be in class and I'd say something that was completely backwards and everybody started laughing. It was funny. And they weren't laughing at me. They were laughing with me. It was funny. They didn't even have time to judge me on it. It was after that is when I got judged on it. But that's not why we're here. My day job, I own Google Business Developer. I love YouTube. I learn my lessons with YouTube and Google. And there's a difference between a free account and a paid account, and being and only using Google products and services. Let everybody else scrub the content, and it'll eventually lead to other search engines, browsers, whatever. And what you understand that these next 7 years is all about a woman. Not the woman they talked about in the mayoral race. Those women couldn't even get elected because they used their womanhood, their gender, as a crutch to get people to vote for them, not based on what people really want their politicians to do, and that's get her done. So for me, when I ran for mayor of Denver, I realized, and I didn't run under Durango Dank, by the way, but my whole purpose is to index the handles, channels, hashtags of others in regards to my metaverse. So everybody's metaverse is what they control. And you have absolute authority over your metaverse content, which starts when you're 18. You really don't want to put up any things when you were young. Those things are not and should not be recorded. You just have to have fun and realize why everybody else takes pictures at their being young, and as they get to 17 and 18, and then they start doing those pictures, wild pictures. You can party, have fun, have beer pictures in there, smoking a joint. But when you get into doing other identifiers that aren't legal, that's how you can get in trouble. And artificial intelligence can now, with people like me, we use what's called object-oriented programming. And what object-oriented programming with voice latent prints, because our voices are now indexed. And it's going to be where your whole life will be on that phone or your device. Wherever there's a microphone and you leave your phone at home, and we have what's called crosstalk indexing, where if you're with a group of people, your voice will be picked up on their phone. When your phone ain't there, it sends up a red flag. How come there's no node connection? Where is her phone? So while the system is looking for a phone, not because she might be doing something bad, but she could be injured. So artificial intelligence, based on some of the things I know, apps that you have on your phone, AI will find out if you're okay, and it will notify somebody if you're down, if you have your settings straight. And that's why most people don't even know they can do this now, because we're so busy trying to identify what AI is, and we have all the wrong people who are all talkers. And those talkers don't want to get the right people to know, because then they'll lose their authority over the talk. Because those who talk and build, they're the ones that get organic content. Organic content is what you see in the beginning. See, they're not clouding up people, pages and, 100 pages of this, especially with certain people. Like I am a team member. Though am an administrator to my teams, I am not the head administrator. That takes either a manager, administrator type that is there to keep my day job going. In other words, if I'm doing audio and visual indexing, editing, uploading, then I have absolute authority, and my content usually goes up pretty quick, within hours, if not immediately. And so what happens is when you have identifiers and you can do uh, algorithms in the back like I did to find this person. I do reverse HR. Okay, so my number's 13. And 69. Okay, 1369 is the 1369 algorithm. Because you can't just jump to 2468. And that number 6 is very, very important, but I'm not going to tell anybody what that is. But so you go 0 to 2, 0 to 1. 0 don't count. Just like 10, there's a 0. It's 1, starting over again. And that's where 1, 2. So 10 is kind of an irrelevant spot because you can't have a 1, 1. So that's why they put the space there. So it's one space. And it's 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4. Anyway, binary code stuff, folks. But what we're talking about is this woman right here. I was talking about her wedding. You should go Google search her name, look up wedding, and read her story. It's just that awesome. There's one picture that I think she had a sword and her husband looked like he was crying. I really like that picture, and you can get so many different stories, titles out of that one image, but it was her whole family and the way it was just very different, far different from the wedding I had. So, shotgun wedding, justice of the peace, I didn't care, I want to get married, boom. But when you see stuff like that, you realize why your wedding really didn't really have a chance. It was all based off whatever. But that whole energy ball that they created that day with their families can never be broken. Because when they do, then they end up like everybody else. And that's the trick of being very powerful over the World Wide Web, is by doing the right thing, helping everybody. No, you can't take anything with you when you go, just like when you came into the world, you had nothing. When you leave the world, you have nothing. So it's these nothings that we leave behind that people who have the node connections, like for me, I could explain this to the whole industry and they wouldn't even really understand it. Most of their IT people would deny it because they know that they wouldn't have a job. But see, it's not having a job. It's adding someone else to your team if you're working with Google Teams. If you're not working with Google Teams, then it don't mean nothing, and you're just like everybody else when you're on Google, YouTube, and if you're trying to get with these other social channels, there's a new formula, and I created it. And so when I was looking at 13 management, just because I got the alert to do the index for Taylor Swift and some of the people that are around her, and check out, and then the stuff I do is just pretty much about, if their financial guy said, hey, can you give us a snapshot of what Taylor Swift's future with the music label, Universal Music Group, can you give us kind of a snapshot? Not ones with information. I want to see it on the internet, and I created it. I can do this with everyone. And there's other people that can do it. Most people do it behind the scene. I do it in front of the scene so that people can learn how to do it so that they can protect their privacy and their images. And you're going to have to take all your images, all those cheese whiz pictures that you see of people where it's just all them and there's really nothing. Who wants to see that? No one's going to know what that is. So you have to create avatars. You have to create things in your life that you convert your image to your personal image to something that you love. Artwork, music, artists. There's a lot of different signs you can use. You just have to make sure that the copyright and all that kind of stuff. But what this stuff that I do, it's inverted pyramid work. If you Google search inverted pyramid, you know what I'm talking about. My content does not require the administrators that I communicate to. They realize that this message is for them and not the masses. So what happens is when they see, oh, this guy knows, then they take what I do and they become administrators over me. And I'll have teams of, I don't know, right now I could have a team of 85 and then triple that within 6 months. But what happens when you have that many people, I personally, and Google terms of Google Teams, I have to have an administrator. And that administrator is the one that decides the organic content because we're always creating. But now we just can't create to create. It has to not get approved, but seasoned. Bring the conversation up from people that have disabilities that are writing organically, having misspelled words or words that we think are the correct spelling because we're dyslexic. Google artificial intelligence does not punish for that, and you can't fake it. You either are or you're not. When you spell the same word over and over and over and over and over and over and over for 20 years on the internet, you've taught and you completely changed all your two, all those different words that sound the same, and you turn them into the ones that you thought was right because you're dyslexic and that's how you remember things, and it's not even the way it is. And then what happens is our content is reactionary. So we want people to talk out loud. We want somebody good, bad, or indifferent. Indifferent means they look at it. They didn't even look at it. I don't care. That's indifferent. I don't care. Well, the same thing you think is what other people are thinking. They don't care about you. So that's that one group of people, I don't care people. Leave me alone. That is a very bad life to live. At least with good and bad, you know what's coming. Indifferent, you have no clue and you're constantly wondering what's going on. So you have bad, where people come in and try to destroy, take over, read some articles, and since they know how to do some SEO and nobody else is doing it like they are, then they get to go up on the top, but they did everything from their home. They never went nowhere. They didn't go to New York. They didn't build any relationships. They're not spending no money. They didn't go to California. They don't go to the Super Bowl, but yet they write about the Super Bowl, and the guy that goes to the Super Bowl and writes a story will now trump the guy that just talked and took the pictures from other things and did a whoop-de-woo article, and it was all based off everybody else, and he almost told the story as if he was there himself. Well, those are good for the mortal worlds, but when you hit on the internet now, everything that you say, everything we do, everywhere we go is now indexed and pattern matched with our voices, with the voices around us. We can now use our Bluetooth manually to do screening of any of the music that's around us, any conversation around us if you want to do that. So it's available to everybody. Even when you shut off your Bluetooth device and you see it pop back on, you're not supposed to see that. But you caught it. Most people don't catch it. And then their Bluetooth's on, and the next thing you know, they got some music of somebody else on their shit, and they're like, whoa, what the? We write that content. What we do is called object-oriented programming with embedded voice prints. We can find anybody, anywhere, at any time. It just takes time. But that, what I mean by any time, we start at that time, and that's when it works its flavor. So we understand conversation flows and the people that need to be in control of the titles. Writers Guild. See? Because the king and queen of the content and data is what matters. Who owns the title? Who owns this title right here?
This is a weekly test of the emergency alert system.
Oh no. So, hope everything's gonna be okay, man. So anyway, so this is just a introduction. This is just an indexing of a woman that has an opportunity to uh, I don't like saying take over the world, but take over conversation blocks, take over conversation flows. When you own the conversation flow, like this is, I own this conversation flow. There's my number, 13. My son was born on the 13th. Other things, but I'm not going to say. 69 is in my social security number. So 1369, when you understand what that algorithm is, when you understand what authority is in building Google Teams so that everybody has a say, and that if that one team member leaves, he can't screw up the rest of the team. His avatar stays there. That's why we don't put pictures of other people, because what happens when you put your picture up there, there's you know, there are organizations that can now pattern match your face with other people, that they just find a person and say, come here, man, we're going to find somebody that kind of resembles you. Then they're going to make a ID and find out all the banking information that this person does, because they tell everybody on their social channels where they go, what they do. You know, they have their birthdays on there. All their social channels should be locked down. And so you might lose your algorithm, but you won't lose your security or privacy. And that's a fact. So when you understand where we are right now in the conversation flow of who's going to step up and take control of artificial intelligence, who's going to enable attorneys to actually have absolute authority over the internet as long as they do the right thing. And so when you think about the managers and the agents, and the company we first started was GP7A.com. G is in Google, P is in power, the number 7, A is in authority, attorney, agent. I mean, there is so much that people could be asking, but we need the ones that say, hey, I don't want to ask, I want to be the answerer. And that's what we are. And so when these agents realize that meta tags of who they represent and how they're being printed, they now control the organic flow of their artist. And as long as they have a person like me on their team, then they all, because I am transferable, so they're all Google partners. And they have to act as if. And we're very strict. And I know everything that gets down, and that's my job, is to show my team administrators how everything works, because they have to go and answer to the shareholders, board of directors, and when certain content goes through their, when the conversation flow gets delivered to their email box and they're not smart enough to answer it, that's how they get indexed under social credit system scores and rankings.com. We own that too. We own disinformationczar.us. And the reason why we have disinformationczar.us is because we needed a disinformation czar, but it can't be run by the government. It has to be run by the people of the government. And when the people of the government realize that when you have these algorithms and you can do these things, and you'll be telling our politicians that they better hurry up and get their ranking up to 60% approval rating, or the voters better hurry up and start voting people in, because when we lose our social standings, and I talked about social standings a long time ago in a book. I wrote a book on racial and criminal profiling. And but that's another story that I won't tell. You got to find out yourselves. So, with that said, my whole 20 minutes of fame right here is being able to communicate with artificial intelligence on the life of this woman right here. I don't want to say her name because I'll probably say it wrong, and I am not going to start a relationship like that out, because it me off when someone gets my name wrong. So, no, it doesn't really, but it does upset me. You know, I correct them quickly, but I'd rather just say, you know what, I don't want to look like an idiot, but could you tell me how to pronounce your name exactly the way I'm supposed to? And you'd be surprised how many people say their name with glee and say thank you. You know what? It's better than saying your name wrong, and especially saying it wrong in front of other people. I ain't doing it, and I'm not going to do it over the internet. And this is part of being organic. You have to admit when you can't do something. You know, there's no shame in that. For me, I love everyone, and most of the people love me. And then what happens is I confuse with people that need stuff to wanting stuff. See, most of the time when someone wants something, they call the other guy. When they need something, they'll call me. Well, then what happens is things start going south, and I start realizing that they're starting to take on the characteristics of people that want. And then when you cut a person that wants off, I don't care who's in that group of people that you had to walk up to, they will ruin you. They'll use any means possible to ruin you. Why? Because they know they'll never have anybody else ever do the things that a person like me does for other people. And I do a lot of things, folks. I do first responding stuff when people get locked out of their houses. I don't roll up as Durango Dank. I wish I could. But I saved a lot of people. That's a very stressing situation. And so I do that. So I'm a locksmith. And only in Denver, Colorado, and state of Colorado. But other than that, I only do it on calls, and I love helping people get locked out of their cars, and I can just go in there and unlock it. I can pick the lock, I can pop the lock. That's what I do. I love saving people. I love when they say thank you, and I can feel it, and they're just like, when you lock your keys in the car or in your house, and you can't get in, it's the worst feelings. And it's amazing, but there's some people that have never locked their keys in their house or their car, ever. I met some 70-year-olds, never. I was like, wow, can I have some of that DNA? Anyways, I can't even tell you how many times I have locked my keys in the house, and the car. But that's why I became a locksmith, so that I could get into my own car. And I do it very well now. Any car I want to get into, I can. And so you have to do it for the right things. The reason why I'm rambling like this is because I'm creating conversation flows of other things that I have and I'm working on in other projects and platforms. I manage 80 Google verified SPAC development companies. It all started in 2006 when we created GP7A.com. And when you think about the words that start with G and P and A, and that lucky number 7 binary code that's next to 6 and close to 9, but you got to get through 8. These numbers all mean stuff. And when you write your content, You can use numbers from other things that you've written that has the same conversation in it. I've been doing this for, oh man, 2006, but I started in 1995. And then I took a break off to 98, and then 98 took a break off. 2006, I started everything back up. Just to get a break from the beast. And artificial intelligence is very powerful, and there 90% of the people that are talking about artificial intelligence have no fucking business talking about it, and it just makes me sick that these people are able to bullshit. But what happens is now the identifiers come up. It's like this is the perfect for me, HR department. If my board of directors and the executives of the platforms I run, I have 5 investors. So anyway, so if they asked me, look, we need to find somebody that's compatible. They asked me this a long time ago, actually. So we do what they stopped us in New York from being able to have HR AI, where we can actually, and they say it's biased. It ain't biased. You're just picking out all the beautiful things about the owner of the company, everything they like, everything they do, everywhere they go, all their vacations, the clothes they wear. And then you're just asking artificial intelligence to create an avatar. And then what happens is we create these avatars by using attributes and other Google operators and things like that there. Uh, and we're able to use person's voice and embed it into, which is their voice. And so when these people talk, like politicians, I know I'm stretching here, but when they talk and they can't produce, the persons that can will start showing up. The difference between an influencer and an observer indexer is that we don't need any glory. We don't need any followers. We don't need anybody doing anything for us, because our specific job is to index those with handles, channels, MySpace, your space, Tube space, you name it. Whatever you want, foundation space. But this right here, if I was if the financial and legal advisors from the Writers Guild Foundation and the woman named here, I'm sorry, I'm not pronouncing her name, we already went through that, and the author or host of whoever's doing the speaking, I haven't heard on it, I haven't clicked it because that's not my position. Artificial intelligence will do that for me. I don't need to cloud my head with anything I don't need to know. Only the people that ask me to do this are learning how pinpointed accuracy with certain identifiers, certain names that are verified to be able to see through millions and millions of data and pick out one person. And now it's being able to convince these 2 people at the management company that they are about to become, if they're willing, has nothing to do with God, because I'm here. Okay? Like if you ever heard of a band called Black Sabbath, in 1992 they wrote an album, Dehumanizer. I was being dehumanized at that time. And so I lost my daughters, and I am a good dad. I'm a father's rights advocate, but I love my children, and I was denied the right to raise my daughters. And that right there is the saddest thing in my whole life that I have to live with my whole life. So I had twin daughters, and anyway, so this is all about now being able to be organic and being able to pull the best authority, the best people together to move mountains, to move communities, to protect our children. And there's only going to be a few people in the whole entire world that's going to know this. And there's no one in the United States of any of authority that knows this. I know because I've gone through my Google searches of all the people that said that they're the best, and I contact them. I send them emails. and they don't realize they got Google. Especially if they have a Gmail account, they need to go read their terms and conditions because everything's indexed. They don't read your text. There's no human that does it. But artificial intelligence has its own way, its own means on their own platforms, and who's going to do who, and the battle between browsers if you have a Windows machine and you're using Google, and how they mess it up. And so that's what I'm saying is that right now the world's about to go boom, baby, big, big, big. 7 years, woman, woman, woman. And all you men that cringe when I say that, we had our opportunity, boys, and we fucked it up. And so now we can only now empower women. The ones that don't want to have kids, they're the leaders, but they can't tell women that have had kids what to do. They just have to give them their maternity and let the women that didn't have kids be those Athena warriors that just crush it. And there's no shame in not wanting to have kids, and that's all I'm saying. But right now, we need family, we need love, we need to help our children, we need to give our teachers better pay, and all the platforms, the 80 platforms that we have, they're worth billions. So if you're talking about digital assets and oh these people have you can live next door for Snoop Dogg for 500,000 and it's all on the internet and you know they that was like the Y2K bug. Remember that? The end of the world was coming. And I remember being in I was in Hollywood in 2000, and there was a riot. There were people jumping on top of buses, turning cars over, policemen with guns with rubber bullets shooting people, and that was the closest I felt to what I believe would be the end of the world. But the difference of the end of the world is those cops would be using real bullets because they have every right to get home. And anyone that thinks they don't, or anybody that thinks that they don't have to do what a policeman tells you to do, then you get whatever the fuck comes your way. Sorry, that's a fact. That's what my dad told me, and he was white. I'm Central American, Iberian, West Nigerian Jew. I was adopted in a very strict Irish Roman Catholic Republican military family from Brooklyn, New York that migrated to Phoenix, Arizona because of the Korean War, where my dad met my mom who couldn't have children because she had the mumps and she became sterile. So they thought they're going to get together and they're going to adopt children, and not just any children, but the children that will never be adopted because they're sick. And not only are we going to get sick babies, but we're going to adopt the three little Indians. And I was one of the three little Indians. And I was sick of people fucking calling me the three little Indians. I have a fucking name. But that's how we all become the man and woman we are, because you know what? That kind of ignorance you can't battle. You're wasting your time. I just say prayers, tell them I love them, which I do, and have to just got to turn my back. Sorry, I got to turn my back on you people. And that's what most people do that have any of authority in the metaverse, is sometimes you got to turn your back. But there's other times you have to embrace those that come knocking on your door with metaverse predictions and reactions and actual money lines of where to put money for future investments. And that's it. We'll see what happens. Peace.